Welcome to Bodhi DBS. Today, we're diving deep into the topic of prayer, something that many of us do every day, yet sometimes we might be missing the true essence of it. Whether you're a seasoned believer or just beginning your spiritual journey, this video will guide you through 4 common mistakes people make while praying. More importantly, we'll explore simple ways to correct them, so you can deepen your relationship with God and make every prayer a meaningful one. By the end of this video, you'll have new insights into approaching God with sincerity, humility, faith, and alignment with His will. So, let's get started on this journey to a more fulfilling prayer life. Mistake 1. Praying with empty words. Praying should be a sincere conversation with God, not a repetitive routine that lacks meaning. Often, we fall into the habit of saying the same phrases repeatedly without thinking deeply about them. Over time, these phrases can become automatic, like a script, and lose their personal connection. Jesus warns against this in Matthew 6 verse 7. And when you pray, do not keep on babbling like pagans, for they think they will be heard because of their many words. Jesus isn't saying we shouldn't pray often, but that we should avoid empty, repetitive words that lack sincerity. Correction for prayer. To avoid this, focus on intentional communication with God. Take a moment before praying to consider what you truly want to say. Reflect on your feelings, needs, and gratitude. Let your words flow naturally from these thoughts rather than a script. Your prayer doesn't have to be lengthy or complicated. It just needs to come from the heart. Example for correction. Instead of repeating the same phrases, make each prayer unique. For instance, instead of always saying the same blessing over meals, try something like, God, thank you for this meal and for always providing for me. Help me use this strength to serve you today. Genuine prayer builds a deeper connection with God. When we approach prayer with sincerity, it stops being a routine and becomes a meaningful, heartfelt conversation that strengthens our relationship with Him. Mistake 2. Praying to be seen by others. One common mistake in prayer is doing it to impress others instead of focusing on God. This often happens when people pray loudly or dramatically in public, seeking attention or praise for their faithfulness. While public prayer itself isn't wrong, the motivation behind it can be a problem if it's meant to gain approval rather than connect with God. In Matthew 6 verse 5, Jesus warns, when you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by others. Jesus calls this behavior hypocritical because it's a form of spiritual showmanship rather than sincere devotion. Correction for prayer. The heart of prayer should be private and humble. Jesus says in Matthew 6 verse 6, but when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father, who is unseen. This doesn't mean we should never pray in public, but that we should check our motives, praying for God's attention, not human approval. Example for correction. If you're in a public setting, quietly focus on your conversation with God rather than on who might be listening. Whether in a private room or a public space, keep your attention on Him, knowing He values authenticity over appearances. When prayer is sincere and personal, it becomes a stronger, more meaningful connection. By praying with a humble spirit, our focus remains on God, not on impressing others. Mistake 3. Lacking faith in your prayers. Doubt is another major issue in prayer. Sometimes, people pray but deep down wonder if their prayers will be heard or answered. This lack of confidence can make prayer feel half-hearted and weak. When we approach God with doubt, it's like we're already preparing for disappointment. James 1 verse 6 reminds us, but when you ask, you must believe and not doubt, because the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind. When we doubt God's power or will to answer, our prayers lose strength and conviction. Correction for prayer. To pray with faith means believing in God's power and trusting in His timing. Instead of doubting, remind yourself that God hears you and will respond in a way that's best, even if the answer isn't immediate or what you expected. Example for correction. If you find yourself doubting, reflect on past times when God has answered your prayers. Begin with gratitude for what He has already done in your life. This can help you develop confidence in His ongoing presence and response. Praying with faith helps us trust in God's wisdom and timing. It builds a resilient relationship where we rely on His plan rather than on what we think is best. Mistake 4. Failing to align your prayers with God's will. Explanation. Sometimes we pray with a strong focus on our own desires without considering what God's plan might be. While it's natural to ask for things we want, focusing solely on personal wishes can make us lose sight of God's larger, perfect plan for our lives. 1 John 5 verse 14 says, "This is the confidence we have in approaching God, that if we ask anything according to His will, He hears us." This highlights that God listens to prayers that align with His will, meaning that sometimes what we ask for might not be best for us. Correction for prayer. To avoid this mistake, approach prayer with a spirit of surrender. Ask for God's guidance and align your requests with His will. Recognize that sometimes His answer might be different from what you want, but ultimately better for you. Example for correction. In challenging times, pray as Jesus did in Matthew 26 verse 39. "My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me. Yet not as I will, but as you will." This prayer expresses a willingness to trust God's plan, even when it's difficult. Aligning our prayers with God's will allows us to trust Him more fully. It keeps us focused on a balanced, two-way relationship where we seek His wisdom and embrace His direction. Conclusion. Thank you for staying with us on this journey to understanding prayer at a deeper level. Remember, prayer is much more than a routine. It's a powerful way to connect with God and invite His presence into our lives. By avoiding these 4 common mistakes, empty words, seeking attention, doubting God's response, and focusing only on our own desires, we open ourselves to a more genuine, impactful experience with Him. When we approach prayer with a heart full of sincerity, humility, and faith, we invite God's wisdom, comfort, and guidance into every part of our lives. Thank you for watching this video and for joining us at Bodhi DBS. If you found this content helpful, please like and subscribe to stay updated on more inspiring videos that bring spiritual insights to life. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. How has prayer impacted your journey? And what tips do you find most helpful? Until next time, keep praying, keep believing, and remember, every step you take towards God brings you closer to the peace and joy He has in store for you. Thanks again for watching, and God bless.